What was to be different about Israel's place of worship than the people of Canaan? This is the question we seek to answer today as we continue our verse-by-verse study of the book of Deuteronomy on Walking Through the Bible. If you have a Bible with you, turn to Deuteronomy chapter 12. We're going to be reading from verses 1 to 7. If you don't have a Bible, don't worry. Just follow along with us on the screen. The version that we'll be reading from is the New King James Version. So Deuteronomy chapter 12, beginning at verse 1. These are the statutes and judgments which you shall be careful to observe in the land which the Lord God of your fathers is giving you to possess, all the days that you live on the earth. You shall utterly destroy all the places where the nations which you shall dispossess serve their gods, on the high mountains and on the hills and under every green tree. And you shall destroy their altars, break their sacred pillars, and burn their wooden images with fire. You shall cut down the carved images of their gods and destroy their names from that place. You shall not worship the Lord your God with such things, but you shall seek the place where the Lord your God chooses out of all of your tribes to put his name for his dwelling place, and there you shall go. There you shall take your burnt offerings, your sacrifices, your tithes, the heave offerings of your hand, your vowed offerings, your freewill offerings, and the firstborn of your herds and flocks. And there you shall eat before the Lord your God, and you shall rejoice in all to which you have put your hand, you and your households, in which the Lord your God has blessed you. Moses has been spending considerable time telling Israel that they should worship the true God of heaven. He told them that they should teach their children to serve God, and that they should serve God themselves so that all would go well for them in the land. He used positive examples of why they should do this by referring to God's power and provisions for them in the wilderness. And he used negative examples of why they should do this, the many times God punished them for their rebellion. Now we may wonder why Moses spent so much time doing this, but in some ways we should be spending so much time doing this because we have the same problem. It only took Israel 40 days of not seeing Moses at Mount Sinai to descend into idolatry. How long does it take us before we begin making men and women our idols, or material goods our idols, or something else in our lives our idols? How long does it take before missing one service becomes missing more services, which becomes abandoning the church altogether? We need to be constantly reminded about why it is good to serve God and not go off into sin, because the devil tempts us to sin every day. And so we shouldn't begrudge Moses for spending so much time on this topic, for it was and is an important topic. Coming to chapter 12, we now come to the part of section 3 of Deuteronomy where Moses really begins to retell the law of Moses beyond the 10 Commandments and the necessity of serving God instead of idols. Yes, his topic at the beginning of the chapter is still idol worship, but we have left off talking for the moment about the foolishness of serving idols to what Israel was to do about the idolatry present in the land of Canaan at the time, as well as how their worship of the true God would differ from the false worship of the Canaanites. The first thing that Israel was to do once they defeated the nations of the land of Canaan was to destroy the places of worship where the Canaanites served their gods. That meant their altars, their sacred pillars, their wooden and carved images, etc. Why? Because not only were the idols an abomination to the Lord, but those places where the worship took place were an abomination as well. If you recall from our previous studies of the Old Testament, when the tabernacle of the Lord was made, the holy items, before being used, were sanctified, were made holy. That is because God is a holy God. An altar where sacrifices were offered to him wasn't to be defiled with unholy things. A sanctuary where he is worshipped was not going to be defiled by an unholy priesthood. In short, God was not going to be worshipped like the gods of the Canaanites, simply without idols. Sacrifices to him was not going to be offered on every hill or in every valley. Multiple temples weren't going to be set up with separate priesthoods and separate rituals. Instead, God was going to choose one place in Israel where he would put his name as his dwelling place. By using that phrase, dwelling place, it does not mean that God left heaven and abode here on physical earth, but it does mean that God would select a place for the tabernacle to rest, and where he would meet the high priest from above the cherubim in the tabernacle in the Holy of Holies. Up until this point, the tabernacle moved when Israel moved. It was set up and set down. There would not be a roaming tabernacle in Israel, but a set place that the Lord would select for his people to come and offer all their sacrifices at and observe all that he commanded them. Now let's not come away thinking that this is a prophecy about Jerusalem, for the passage doesn't say that specifically, nor does he say that the place he selects, that being God, is immovable. It merely says that the Lord will select a place for worship. He might change that place if he saw fit, but the tabernacle would have a place to rest and not wander. In Joshua, we're going to find the first place selected would be Shiloh. This place would serve as the tabernacle site all the way to the days of Samuel. After that, the site of worship would be moved from time to time before Jerusalem is finally selected as the place where the temple would be built and worship would take place from there on out. The point we need to take away from this section is not necessarily the name of the place of worship, but that there would be a place where God selected for his people to come and worship him. This selection would be a main point of contention later between the Jews and the Samaritans, as seen by Jesus' conversation with the woman at the well in John chapter 4. We'll continue with this, the Lord willing, in the next lesson. With that, our time is up for today. The Lord willing, we hope you'll join us for tomorrow's discussion of Deuteronomy chapter 12, verses 8 to 19, as we continue our walk through the Bible, one verse at a time.
Thank you for watching today's episode. We hope that you found it edifying and ask that you not only subscribe to our channel and podcast, but that you like and share this episode among your friends, so that the saving gospel of Jesus Christ can go out to the whole world.